You wouldn't put out the paper plates, right? No, you would put out the good stuff, right? Maybe you can have some fresh flowers around or something, huh? Okay.
Bacon and eggs.
So it all started at bacon and eggs. I don't think so. But guess who's coming to dinner? All started out with this picture, and it had to be this way. It just had to be this way because I'll show you. We're going to review the sacrifices. These are 3,500 years ago that these were and counting. That these were brought about. They had sacrifices that covered daily sacrifices, weekly sacrifices, monthly sacrifices, and then there were 7 annual feast days on top of that, which is what we kind of focus on. We don't necessarily focus on the daily, the weekly, the monthly, but this calendar really reflects how much time belongs to God, because they're appointed times. And if you don't make an appointed time, you miss the appointment. How else can we say that, right? All right. We just miss the appointment if we're not there. Just as a review, and I think I put that on your paper, the types of offerings. There's 5 different kinds of offerings that are biblical offerings. A burnt offering, it's called the Olah offering. That's the one that the entire thing goes up in smoke, up in fire to God. The next one is called the grain offering, or the Mincha offering, and that's a portion of that went to God, and a portion of it went to the priest. A portion went to God. Everything goes to God goes up in fire, by the by. Think about it. Just put that little thought. Everything. Say that. Every offering that goes to God goes up in fire. Okay. Okay. There's a peace offering. It's called the Shalom offering. The portion goes to God, a portion goes to the priest, and a portion goes to the Israelite. The peace offering is the only offering that the Israelite gets to partake in. Okay, that's the only one. And then there's the sin offering. It's called the Chatat. Help me, Myra. Chatat portion offering, and a portion goes to God, a portion to the priest. This is the one that the priest has to eat. Think about it. Little things to think about that should want you to connect a dot to something else. The priest has to consume the sin offering. God and God his portion, but the priest is the guy who has to eat the sin offering. Go and figure, right?
So Yeshua was our high priest?
You betcha. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's why how he consumed it. He's the priest, and he consumed all of your sin. Then there's the trespass offering, which the Asham. A portion goes to God, a portion goes to the priest. He has to eat it, and the Israelite has to make restitution. This is one where the Israelite, I don't know, I borrowed your lawnmower. I'm sorry, I broke it. It got stolen. I owe you. I stole your lawnmower. I stole your cow. I stole your whatever, and I have to bring an offering for the trespass offering, and I owe you whatever your lamb cost plus 20%. Okay, so there's a penalty involved in the trespass offering. Okay, so which is the offering that the Israelite gets to partake of?
Peace.
Peace offering is the only one. Okay, and who has to eat the sin offering? The priest. The priest. Okay. All right. So chapter 28, and this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to make you listen to me read today, because this is just like, we're just going to do it that way.
We read that whole chapter last night, and it was very interesting.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Good.
They
Okay.
get points.
You get.
I don't need any points.
Okay. What I'm going to do is just read the first 15 verses, and that's going to suffice and then we'll talk about the rest of it, and you'll see why it'll make more sense. But just to give you an up and running here. Now the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, "Command the children of Israel and say to them, my offering, my food for offerings, made by fire, as a sweet aroma to me, you shall be careful to offer to me at their appointed time." Time is very important to God, and the right time is very important to Him. Okay? Oops, I didn't mean to do that. Okay. And you shall say to them, this is the offering made by fire, which you shall offer the Lord. 2 lambs in their first year. Make a point of that, or underline that, in their first year. Okay? That's going to become important later. In their first year, without blemish, day by day is a regular burnt offering, day by day. That means every day. The 1 lamb you shall offer in the morning, and the other lamb you shall offer in the evening. And 1/10 of an ephah of fine flour and grain offering mixed with 1/4 of a hin of pressed oil. It shall be a regular burnt offering which was ordained at Mount Sinai for a sweet aroma, an offering made by fire to the Lord. And its drink offering shall be 1/4 of a hin for each lamb. In a holy place you shall pour out the drink to the Lord as an offering. And the other lamb you shall offer in the evening as the morning grain offering, and its drink offering. You shall offer it as an offering made by fire, a sweet aroma to the Lord. Does that tell you that there's 2 identical offerings going on? One going on in the morning at 9 o'clock, one going on in the afternoon. It says in the evening, but it's in the Hebrew, it's between the evenings. It's 3 o'clock in the afternoon. 9 o'clock to 3 o'clock. You often wondered where baker's hours came from? Right here. 9 o'clock, the tabernacle's open for business. You're going to have business. You have with the priest. You go between 9 o'clock and 3 o'clock. Okay. All right. Sabbath offerings. Oh, not only weekly, but daily, but Sabbath. And on the Sabbath, 2 lambs in their first year without blemish, and 2/10 of an ephah of fine flour as a grain offering mixed with oil, with its drink offering. We've got meat, and we've got bread, and we've got wine going on all the time. You wonder why the waitress comes and says, what can I get you to drink before dinner at a nice restaurant? Would you like, and you want to order a glass of wine, right?
Unless I'm driving.
Unless you're driving. And they'll cuss. And they bring you a nice glass of wine, and they put your wine down. And they probably also bring you some nicely fresh baked bread. You wonder where that comes from? Right there. And then you're probably gonna have some kind of meat for an entree. Right? It's all right there. Okay. Food. It's important to you. It's important to me. It's important to God. And verse 11. And at the beginning of your month, so we did daily, now we did Sabbath, verse 9 and 10, now monthly. And monthly, at the beginning of your months, you shall present a burnt offering to the Lord. 2 young bulls, a ram, 7 lambs in their first year without blemish. 3/10 of an ephah of fine flour, and a grain, as a grain offering, mixed with oil for each bull, 2/10 of an ephah of flour as a grain offering mixed with oil for the ram, and 1/10 of an ephah of fine flour mixed with oil as a grain offering for each lamb as a burnt offering of sweet aroma, an offering made by fire to the Lord. Their drink offering shall be 1/2 a hin of wine for a bull, 1/3 of a hin for a ram, and 1/4 for a hin. Of a hin for a lamb. This is the burnt offering for each month throughout the months of the year. And 1 kid of the goats as a sin offering to the Lord shall be offered besides the regular burnt offering as its drink offering. It took me all week to figure this out, but with the goat offering on the monthly offering, there is no grain offering or drink offering. The bulls get an offering, a grain offering. The rams get a grain offering and a drink offering, and the lambs get a grain offering but the goat on the monthly offering, There's a whole lot of meat and bread and wine going on here, except for the goat offering, which is a sin offering on a monthly basis. which the who has to eat?
Priest.
Priest. Oh. You are going to be so glad by the time 2:30 gets here this afternoon, you're just not even going to believe it. Okay, all right, let's keep going. There. Okay, now let's go. All right. Verse 2 said, my food. God said, my food. Look at verse 2. My food. Command the children of Israel and say to them, my offering, my food for my offerings, made by fire as a sweet aroma to me. God reveals himself to us in terms that we can understand and can appreciate, because we all have an appetite for food. Food we understand, right? Sacrifices and offerings. For humans, food is an essential element of life, for life. And he's using man's language. He uses food to communicate these concepts, these essentials. Our relationship with him is going to include sacrifices and offerings. We don't like to think about this. In fact, we Christians don't think about this very much anymore, because Yeshua was the sacrifice for us. And that's the whole point of this Bible, is Yeshua is a sacrifice for us, because the whole front part of the book here is involved and deals with a whole lot of sacrifice, right? A whole lot of it. Okay. It points to the metaphor of a covenant meal, which involves food. In the ancient world, covenants were always concluded with a meal. It's a ceremonial type of a meal to demonstrate a friendship that the covenant has created. So if you have a covenant with God, if you have a covenant with Yeshua, you have a friendship with him. That's where this comes from. That's where this whole idea of God is my friend, Jesus is my friend, Yeshua is my friend, is because you have a covenant with him. He has made, I'm going to say this 7 times, I guess, probably, because until I get some heads nodding in the audience. He has a covenant with you. You have a covenant with him. It's awesome. It's paid for. And all of these sacrifices were a foreshadow of Yeshua's own payment for your sin and my sin. And in verse 6, it is a regular burnt offering which was ordained at Mount Sinai. This goes all the way back to Mount Sinai, for a sweet aroma, an offering made by fire to the Lord. So these guys are now under the Levitical priesthood. True? Abraham wasn't. Isaac wasn't. Jacob wasn't. They were under kind of a patriarchal kind of a priesthood, where the dad of the family, the patriarch of the family, was the priest of the family. Well, along came that unfortunate golden calf incident at Mount Sinai, and now he's got Aaron is going to be the priesthood, and the whole Levitical thing is going to, the whole Levitical priesthood, the whole family of Levites are going to serve in the priesthood from that point on until another point in time when Yeshua comes along and puts an end to it. Okay? All right. What did Yeshua say? He's described, as far as food goes, because we're talking about this relationship with him being food related, he described himself, sure enough, as the bread from heaven. That's that grain offering, if you will. He declares to his disciples that, you tell me what you would do at this point in time when you heard this with your ears, Deb. He says that unless they eat his flesh and drink his blood, that they have no fellowship with him.
Sounds kind of gross.
Sounds kind of gross. That's what a lot of his disciples, his followers, not the 12, but a lot of the people that were following him said, oh, that's a little bit hard. I think I'm just going to, I'll see you later. I gotta go fishing. Okay? But was he actually speaking of his If you're Catholic, that's what happens, I understand, right? Right? Something gets changed into, I don't know. Anyway,
Every time they do communion.
every time they do communion, yeah. Yeshua is simply reminding them that life is in his blood. That's true. And his blood is soon to be poured out for them. And unless they partake in that somehow, they won't be part of him. They won't have fellowship with him. So this life can be theirs as well, but they may only obtain it when he, like the sacrifices, when he is consumed upon the altar. So he says, can you read that, Joel? You're right there.
Sure. The same way that food sustains our physical lives, so our souls are maintained by abiding in the presence of Yeshua. I am the bread of life. The one coming to me never shall hunger.
He's offering us something that, through his sacrifice, that we're not going to be hungry for again, ever. We're not going to be hungry for another. We might be hungry physically, but spiritually, our eyes got opened and we can see into his kingdom. A little bit, maybe, hopefully. Okay, so unless you eat my flesh, he was simply saying to his disciples that unless they personally accept his sacrifice, participating in the covenant meal, they could have no righteous standing before the Father.
So why is this so inbred in Catholicism about communion?
Well, they just have, I don't know. I'm not Catholic. I wasn't raised Catholic. I've never been to a Catholic church. I've been to a Catholic funeral. I've never been to a Catholic church. It's my understanding from what I've read from the outside, and that every week, every time you go to Mass, it's like you have to kill him all over again. And you have to, when you take the communion, it's doing that. It's killing him all. He's going, as far as I understand, my Baptist background tells me, he said, I'm doing this once for all time. I'm only going to go through this pain and agony one time for you guys. I'm going to spill my blood. And if you can accept it, then you could be one of my kids too, right?
Maria was raised Catholic.
Is that true?
Is that true? Yeah.
Every week. That's why he's always on the cross in the Catholic Church. He's always there because he hasn't come down off the cross yet. He's always there. I don't mean to be offensive,
No,
Maria, to your culture,
it's,
to your people.
That they keep the cross. That is what I don't like, because Jesus' resurrection
Yes.
has happened, and so that is the Jesus that we have to remember.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
He's not a dead guy on a
Yes,
stick
and we don't
anymore.
have to
No.
be
He's the-
drinking
no.
blood or eating flesh. No,
No.
I don't go with that. So
Yeah.
for me, Jesus is the one who can teach us to live and
That's right.
die for our sins, and we have to follow what He wants to teach us.
That's
Just
exactly
remember
right.
that cross and those-
And now when we eat bread, it's like we're just remembering what it is that he did for us. Remembering what he did for us. He said, when you eat this bread or drink this wine, remember what I did for you, in remembrance of what he did. We're not crucifying him all over again. He's done that.
Good clarification.
Okay?
I think it's part of the idea that, you take that part literally. So you have to think about in your mind how a Catholic would think that as soon as you consume that wafer and that wine, it becomes actually the body and blood of Christ. And they have to say that because they want to justify the scripture here, is thinking that it's actually the body, the actual blood, when you actually consume it. And I know my wife has said that when they're told when you take that wafer, you're not supposed to chew it. Because if you do, you're actually chewing the body of Christ.
Oh boy. Oh
I
wow.
always chew.
So it's different that way. It's that transubstantiation, as they refer to it. It's just kind of like a false doctrine, and it's going to carry over because they got to justify this here. But they all did say something about that. It says this is a very hard saying. Who can bear it? And it's you can understand where they're coming from because they took it from a sort of an allegorical, analogy of how They're consuming Christ. In other words, taking the whole Him into our lives as far as who He is, everything that He represents. We are taking that in, and that's what we need to look at as far as our communion with Christ in that way.
And
We do that daily.
Jesus even says, he said, this is my body given for you. Do this in remembrance of me. And he said this before he had given his body. So yeah, it was a hard saying. I mean, I can see where they would think it would be a hard saying. Dolores?
Well, it's forbidden for the Jewish people in the law to consume blood.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
they have more than just a hard saying. They have he's saying this saying is different, and I'm putting this in for just me.
Right. And he represents all of the sacrifices, including the grain sacrifice and all of it. So he did more. Wow. I mean, all of a sudden I'm getting another picture here too. In addition.
His blood is different also.
Sure.
We've already-
Absolutely, his blood is different than all human blood, for sure. Okay, so every sacrifice listed here, every one of the ones that I gave you there on your paper, every one of them is accompanied by a meal offering mixed with wine and oil, with the exception of the goat. And this additional offering may well be symbolic. There's the word symbol. It's symbolic of the joy of the wine and the peace of the oil. Wine represents joy, the joy of man, and oil is represents peace in several places. And the sacrifice or the lamb brings as a soothing aroma. God is pleased with a soothing aroma. It's not as though God is somehow satisfied by the aroma of sacrifice or I love the smell of meat cooking. I don't know about you, but no, it's the symbolism of the death of Yeshua. And look in verses in chapter 28. All these verses have to do with the grain and the drink offering. Okay, in chapters 28, there's 12, 20. In verses 12, 20, and 28, grain and drink offerings are mentioned, along with those sacrifices, along with the sacrifice. And in chapter 29, look at all of them.
Wow.
I think there's 18 of them, which is why we're not going to read all that, because it's repeating itself. Different amounts of grain, so much of an ephod, so much of a hin of wine, but they're all there. So it's always meat and bread, if you will, grain, and a wine, a drink offering, all the time. Well, why do we say this? Well, because sin is a very ugly business. Sin is just ugly. It's what we live in. We live in an atmosphere of sin. We've been born into it. And Yeshua said, when the Father looked down and saw his Son Yeshua bearing the sin of the world, he didn't see his Son. In fact, he saw instead the sin that his Son was bearing. And there was a separation of some, I can't explain what it is, but somehow that's why Yeshua is calling out, my God, why have you forsaken me? For a little bit, there was a separation between he and his Father.
Well, you know he's quoting that.
I know he's quoting. I understand he's quoting Psalm 122, I think it is. And in that awful moment, but this is true. In that awful moment, as he's saying that, the Father's looking down. He turned away, not in anger. He wasn't angry at his Son. No. He loved his Son at that moment, but he cannot. God can't look upon sin. Those things, they don't mix. God and sin just don't mix. He turned away in anger over all the sin of the world that sent his Son to the cross. He turned away in sorrow and in deep pain. I mean, we're breaking God's heart all over again here. When he saw what sin had done, he turned away in a complete revulsion of ugliness of sin. And at that moment, remember, from 3 o'clock in the morning, that's the time he was put, 3 o'clock in the morning, at 9 o'clock in the morning, that's when he was put on the cross, till 3 o'clock in the afternoon, he stayed alive long enough, like how Myra wrote in her book. He stayed alive long enough to absorb all that sin. He could have just died right away. He could have said, well, this isn't very much fun, well, and gone. No. He stayed alive until 3 o'clock in the afternoon as the priest was on the temple mount, on the temple, at the temple altar, at the temple, was sacrificing the Passover lamb for the nation.
The truth is, he was just about dead already. I think it took all the strength of the universe for him to stay alive on that
Yeah.
cross. 'Cause
Did I say that backwards?
No, you said it right,
Oh.
but I'm just saying that it was just so, it took all of the strength that he had to stay alive. That was,
Because otherwise, if he had died at 2:59 instead of 3 o'clock, he might have left Sonia out.
ah,
Can't have that. So when he said it is finished, and he gave up his spirit to the Father, it was done.
it was.
It was
Completely
completely done, and everything was back in order. It doesn't look like it when we look outside yet, when you listen to the news,
Order is.
but in the order of his kingdom, things were placed in order again. Now, did we have anything to do with that whatsoever? Absolutely no, not none. We didn't contribute to that one iota, except the sins that we've committed. Now it's up to us to do what?
Accept it.
Repent and accept it, right? Yeah.
And live our life accordingly.
And yes, and then, God, what do you want me to do? What can I do for you because of what you've done for me? On a daily basis, searching for it, looking for it. How can I be of service to you? Lord, thank you for your service.
Get for
What
granted.
can I do to serve him? Huh? What?
And get for granted that we deserve everything.
Yeah.
We have to give something to God because He prizes us with His Son. So how we are going to respond? We have a compromise with Him.
We have a
Compromise with God.
compromise with God.
Yes, we have to look what He wants from us and
Yes.
follow the law that He gave us.
Yes, exactly. He gave us an instruction book, and the more we can look into His Word and find out what the instructions are, and come into agreement with them, and when you come to the ones that you don't understand, just go, God, I don't understand this. Would you teach me? Well, that's why He sent you back the Holy Spirit, because all this points to Him. All this points to Yeshua. Okay. Oops. On the one hand, it is a horrid thing upon which God could not look upon, for He turned His face away from the one who bore the sins of many people. And we see that in Psalm 22:1. Let's look that up. Somebody grabbed Psalm 22:1, and somebody grabbed Matthew 27:46, and somebody grabbed Mark 15:34. And yes, Yeshua was quoting from Psalm 22 when he said that, and he was remezing to it.
I got Psalm 22.
Okay, good.
So, my God, why have you forsaken me? Why are you so far from helping me and from the words of my groaning?
Okay. All right. Let's compare that with Matthew 27:46.
And about the 9th hour, Jesus cried out with a loud voice, saying, Eli, lama sabachthani.
Sabachthani.
That is, my God, why have you forsaken me?
Okay. You see that at about the 9th hour? That would be 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Okay. And somebody have Mark 15:34, which should probably be a repeat.
I have it.
Okay.
And at 3 in the afternoon, Jesus cried out in a loud voice, Eloi, Eloi, lema sabachthani, which means, my God, why have you forsaken me?
So Yeshua he's on the cross, 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and he's quoting Psalm 22. And a lot of the people who knew the scriptures, because that's how they knew the scriptures, they would memorize them, realize what he was doing. So, yeah, in a very real sense, the death of Yeshua is the only soothing aroma that could please the Father. For only through the death of Yeshua could the sins of his people be honestly atoned for, meaning being wiped clean. Soothing aroma. Here's the word. Myra, you want to help me? Rayach?
Yeah,
There's that
Rayach.
Rayach. Rayach. It sounds kind of like ruach, but it's Rayach. It's not the same because ruach is a
Has a vav in it.
ruach has a vav. This has a yod. So you. So anyway, at any rate, rayach is a soothing. It's an odor of soothing. It's a technical term for sacrifice to God. Soothing aroma. When you see that, it's an idiom for and it's only used. This word, Hebrew word, is only used as a sacrifice to God. It's not used in any other context. So Yeshua became Mr. In-Between for us, if you will. Okay? He hung between heaven and earth. He's on a cross. He's off the ground, but he's, between heaven and earth, bearing the sins of all of us. It was at the same time that God made him who had no sin to be sin for us, so that in him we might become the righteousness of God. That's the transaction that occurred at that point in time. And I'm going, all right. He hung between heaven and earth bearing the sin. That reminded me of going back when Aaron was alive, just a couple chapters ago, in Numbers 17, when the plague came in and Korah's rebellion and that whole thing was going on. And all of a sudden, the earth was opening up and swallowing up 250 guys, remember? And there was like, I don't remember, 14,700 that God's wrath was coming in. And Moses says to Aaron, hurry up and go get the censer and put incense on it and go and stand between the people and the plague. And he did, and the plague stopped. I want you to keep this in mind. This is not just history. What Yeshua did for you when God's wrath is poured out on this planet, he's standing between you and the Father and the Father's wrath. God's wrath is not going to come anywhere near you. How's that for being part of the fine print? Benefits package.
It's a very peaceful feeling.
It's a very peaceful. Yes,
He is.
that you're one of his kids and he's your Abba. He's your Abba, right? That's what it means. Jeff, help me. Help me. Tell me I'm right.
You're absolutely.
Takes away that
There we go.
fear.
It takes away the fear. And when we watch the news, if you tune into the news and dip your toe into the news pool of a daily, it's kind of like, this world is getting nuts. It's getting nuts, right?
Right.
Well, keep in mind, Yeshua is standing between you and this world system. And these world systems that man has been so, Daniel and the statue, the whole thing that we're going to talk about later, they're getting crazy, and they're beginning to crumble. The world system is going to crumble, and that's okay. And God's Israel, God's kingdom, and his people are the ones that are going to remain after it's all over with. Somebody say hallelujah.
Hallelujah.
Amen.
You're right.
I know.
That's really good.
Here's a picture of Aaron. Yeah, that I found a picture this morning. That fit. Here he is with his censer, and these are the prayers. You tell me it's not important to pray, right?
Yeah.
In the incense and the incense of prayers. A lot of people died real quickly. That'll happen again. So I found this picture and I liked it, and I almost made you listen to accentuate the positive, eliminate the negative, and don't mess with Mr. In-Between, but I won't do that. I made Myra listen to it the other day. Matthew will get up, walk right out of the room. Anyway, Yeshua will save his people and stand between us and God when God's wrath is poured out.
Amen.
So, Mr. In-Between, don't mess with it. Okay? So Israel was to repent, was to represent, Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh, Yahuwah, to the nations. That was, and sacrifices every day, every week, every month, every year were given to him as an act of worship. Israel was therefore to be known as a nation characterized by her priests and their sacred duties. That's what you are. You guys, every day, whether you realize it or not, under this new covenant that we have with Yeshua, you are a priest to God. And when you spend time in His Word and time with Him and time talking to Him, He's going to take you past the altar, past the laver, and He's going to invite you. Priest, nobody can go in here except a priest. I want you to remember that. You can't go into this tabernacle unless you're a priest. And I'm not, and in this instance, I'm not talking Levitical priest, I'm talking kingdom priest, okay? And you'll go in and you'll go out, you'll go in and you'll go out, and you'll go in, and sometimes He'll send you way out and He'll send you to go minister to somebody. But you're to represent Him to wherever you're at. You're a ambassador for Yeshua, right? Sweet aroma. Okay. So God says, hey, you guys, this is Yeshua. To Him was a sweet aroma. It's His food. It's His offerings. It's His fire. It's His times. It's His way. So, I just want you to think about this for a minute, daily. I know I'm repeating myself, but this is important so you get the picture. Daily, 9 o'clock and at 3 o'clock, a lamb like this was going on the altar. 2 of them. One in the morning, one in the afternoon. Let's just do the math here for just a minute. I thought this might be fun. You ready? Here we go. 2 lambs per day for a burnt offering. We're just talking about the burnt offering. Times 7 days a week is 14 lambs a week. Times 52 weeks a year is 728 lambs a year for a daily burnt offering. Times 1,500 years from Moses to Yeshua is 1,092,000 lambs. Spotless in their first year, offered for the daily offering during the 1,500 years that the temple was in operation. Just to give you an idea.
Wow.
Yep. But now, can you read this, Myra?
Yeah.
Thing?
Wait a minute, change glasses.
Change glasses.
Hebrews 10, sacrifices and offerings you have not desired, but a body have you prepared for me. Prepared for me. In burnt offerings and sin offerings you have taken no pleasure. Then I said, behold, I have come to do your will, O God, as it is written of me in the scroll of the book.
So lest you think God is just tickled to death with blood and guts and animals and parts and pieces and cutting them up and, He's not. He's not.
Nope.
He's not. Can you see? But a body you have prepared. Yeshua saying, but a body you have prepared for me. Something had to happen on an altar that was a soothing aroma to God in order to set the universe to right. Is that true?
Yeah.
Or am I just talking out of my hat?
No, it's true.
It's all pointing, it's always, everything, you talk about the sacrifices, they're all pointing to Yeshua, to the time when He would come.
Yep.
So, it's like, that's why that verse says, sacrifice and offerings you have not desired. In other words, you're pointing to the time when the ultimate sacrifice for man was coming. And that's when Yeshua became sin for us.
And I want you to get this, I want you to hear this. Sacrifice is the word zabek. And I can't spell it for you, but zabek. And that literally means slaughter. That's the animal that's slaughtered for the sacrifice. The offering is more akin to the thing that is put on the grain offering. Okay? So Yeshua, He's likening Himself to this bread, which is a lot easier way for us to understand because now we don't have to eat whatever. I don't know what I'm saying at this point in time, but this bread and wine, the bread and the wine is a big part of God's remembering what it was that Yeshua did, what He became for us, the offering. He was the sacrifice. Now we celebrate with the offering is what I'm trying to say. Does that make sense? Yes. Okay. or metaphorically, all these sacrifices that were laid on the altar. Even as food sustains our physical bodies, our souls are nourished and sustained by the sacrifice of Yeshua. That's the point. Even though it was made 2,000 years ago, it's been a long time. People were looking forward to it, yada, yada, yada. This guy, he says something like this. Okay. The words were found and I did eat them, Jeremiah says. And the word unto me was unto me the joy and rejoicing of my heart. He ate the words. He ate the words. Yeshua is the word. We partake of his word. So here's, and we're not, this is what the rest of the chapter 29 is about, which is why we're not going to go into this, because it lays out all these little individual things. So here's daily, weekly, monthly, Passover, unleavened bread, bulls, rams, lambs. Here's the column. The A is the daily sacrifice 2. So when you see an A, it's also +2. These 2 lambs over here. The sin offering during unleavened bread, a goat was offered every day during unleavened bread, plus 7 lambs, plus the 2. See what I mean? I mean, there's a lot. If we were to add up all the, this is just through unleavened bread. This is the grain stuff of 3 tenths, 2 tenths, 1/10 of an ephah of all of these. It's crazy.
And
It's
an ephah is a bushel.
Ephah is a bushel. And I didn't even put the hens. I think a hen is like a liter or something. So that's just through unleavened bread. And here's the rest of the year. Look at here. Get down to Feast of Tabernacles. Now this is double. 14 lambs every day. And they add look at all the bulls that go down in order. I mean, this is, I don't know, I don't understand why. Nobody knows why. But there's just a whole lot of sacrifice and offerings going on, right? These places where there's a little X here, that means that's a no work day.
Did they eat those offerings?
Well, the burnt offerings they didn't, but no, yes. No, these are burnt offerings.
So they didn't eat them.
No,
So the fire consumes.
fire consumes it. Yeah. All foreshadows, it's all, this whole thing is a foreshadow of Yeshua. Railroad tracks for him to ride into town on. Here's that. He cast a giant shadow. From Passover in the spring of the year towards Yom Kippur in the fall, the celebration to the celebration of Tabernacles, where it all winds up. Now, this is what I want you to think about right here. And Yeshua comes along in Revelation and he says, hey, if anybody hears my voice, I will come in and dine with him. There's your covenant meal invitation. And hey, guess what? Your covenant meal, it's included in the price of the sacrifice of Yeshua. So I have a question for you. If you were going to have a covenant meal with Yeshua, and it was just the 2 of you sitting down for dinner, would you want to have that covenant meal on the beach? Or would you rather have it on a balcony, kind of a mountainous setting or on the beach? What do you think?
Depend on the weather.
Huh?
Maybe depend on the weather.
It depends on the weather.
Beach
It's
sounds
the
pretty
perfect
good.
day, Maria. Where would you, if it was a perfect day and you could set the table for Yeshua coming to your house for a covenant meal, would you want it on the beach with the palm,
Yeah.
torches? Or would you want it in overlooking the mountains?
I'd rather have it in the evening, looking over the mountains.
This is Tina. Okay. Anybody else?
Beach.
Beach? Steve's a beach guy? Okay. Deb? What do you think?
You know,
It's not a card game, Deb.
Go around,
Okay.
come back.
I love the beach.
You love the beach. The beach? Is that where you go? Okay.
I do a balcony in the evening on the beach.
No.
With
no.
the sea view.
That's right.
Water view there.
That's right.
And the ocean out here. Okay. So
Balcony
balcony
in Jerusalem.
in Jerusalem. Okay. Maria?
Yes, I will go to the beach.
We'll go to the beach, all right. Jeff, what about you?
I like them both.
Pick one.
Since I haven't been on the beach, I'll take the beach.
Okay.
But otherwise, you know, Jerusalem, like some of you said, sound really cool too. Looking overlooking the city.
Dolores, what about you?
I'd ask him where he wanted.
And he's asking you where you want to go.
He's following your move.
Yeah.
I would probably, I wouldn't pick that one, but I would probably on the porch.
On the porch.
On a balcony.
On the porch.
Balcony.
What about Myra? What about you?
I'd be on a porch like that overlooking the Sea of Galilee.
Overlooking the sea.
Okay.
That way you have lots to talk about. Have any of you ever watched the movie Dinner with a Perfect Stranger?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's an interesting movie.
Yeah.
And in a fancy restaurant. Anyway.
If you want, I have it.
I thought you were gonna tell us something about it.
Oh, no, I just wanted you to think for a few minutes of him knocking on your door and coming to your house to have this coming to Matt.
Yeah.
What? I didn't ask you. I'm sorry.
Well, Myra stole my answer. But, you know, think about when Yeshua came and knocked on the door. You know, and a lot of this happens with a lot of people. There's nothing but brokenness. And you're emptied of self. And so I think wherever we are, that's where he comes in.
Yeah.
When we're laid down and I can't do it anymore. And so there may be paper plates.
Yep.
There may be uncleanness, whatever it is. But he says that he will come in if we're surrendered and our heart is open.
Oh, absolutely. I was just kind of referring to further down the road when you.
Sea of Galilee on the beach.
Yeah, okay. So this is something that we do together with him. But that cast a giant shadow, that's something that he did all alone. He did that alone, and he did it for you.
And he's not up there anymore.
And he's not up there, and he's not doing it again. No. No. Pass through that. This he did alone. Yada yada. He just needs the response from man. He didn't need anything from us to accompany him to do this. We got him into that situation in the first place when we broke the covenant. So we're just waiting for a response from us. Okay, so yada yada, sacrifice of Yeshua needed nothing added to it to be complete. He didn't need any wine, didn't need any oil. He just needed that altar. So without the resurrection, there's no hope for mankind, because which animal of sacrifice ever got up off the altar to save a man? None. There's no animal that ever got up and said, okay, you're all done. None. Yeshua did. So it's a two-part blessing. It's Yeshua's death that paid the price for our sin, but it's Yeshua's resurrection that gives us life. The fact that he overcame death, that's the part that gives us life.
So that's confirming the covenant.
And it's confirming the covenant, the fact that he rose from the grave. I want you to look at this Hebrew word, and we're almost done. It's called tamim, and that's a plural. The I and the M up there, the yod and the mem up there makes it a plural word. So you'll see this word, the tav and the mem. But it literally means perfect, blameless, plain. The Urim and the Tumim come into this place. It also means his people. Okay? It's just amazing. Tamim, perfect. It's first used in Scripture with Noah These are the generations of Noah. Noah was a just man and perfect. You say Tamim? Tamim in his generations, and Noah walked with God. Okay? Noah was a guy. The Tav, literally the Tav, this letter here is a sign. This letter here, Tav, is a sign of the covenant, and the Mem, this letter here, literally means living water. So Tamim describes those who choose to walk in God's ways. The covenant of living water with Him. Here we go. You ready for this? As a character description, all through the scriptures, it literally means innocent, sincere, perfect, or simple. Okay, you ready? Watch. Here we go. Noah was first described as perfect and upright. Adam, walk before me and be blameless. This is the word that's this word is this word in the Hebrew. Okay. Jacob was a plain man, a Tom man. Tamim. Job, upright, blameless in all of his generation also. David was upright. He was Tom. Priestly lights in Urim and Thummim are known as Tom. It's there. The rock, his work is perfect. Every time you see those words, those are all Tom words here. Translates as whole or unblemished. In the Bible, young Jacob is an Ish Tom. Ish is the word for man. Okay, he's a Tom man. He's an upright man. A simple man, it says, it's how they translate it. Who sat in his tents, contrasting his brother Esau as a cunning hunter. So Esau was a cunning hunter, and Jacob is a Tom man, an upright man, a plain man, a simple man. He was a man of the tents. This is so important because this is why it's important. This guy's going to write something on the board here as soon as I get it going. It's Esau. It's Esau who gives a different description of Jacob. It's Esau who said he was cunning and deceitful. It's Esau who said that. Why would we believe Esau? I can't tell you how many sermons I've heard that Jacob was just a deceiving, conniving thief. Is anybody?
Mm-hmm. It never sat well with me, even in grade school.
Even in grade, no. It didn't make
any sense.
It didn't make any sense. That's because we're taking Esau's word for it.
I knew it was wrong.
Here we go. Here, look at this. Tom, remember? Tom and Mem, right? These are some of the different words that are used to describe it. I think I gave that to you on your paper. I hope I did. Complete, righteous, innocent, simplicity, integrity, uncorrupt, chaste, spotless, guiltless, virtuous, healthy. That's what Jacob was.
Mm-hmm. Amen.
Now, the other word, so I looked for the opposite of this word in the Hebrew, and it took me a long time, and I finally came up with this one. But these are all the words that would be the opposite of this, right? It's the word ma'ad. It literally means to slip, to slide, to shake, tottering, fallen. I mean, you know, that kind of a concept. Well, look at this. Lascivious, no restraint toward evil and rejecting good. Lucifer, you were Tamim until iniquity was found in you. Oh. And then he fell, right? Mm-hmm. Lucifer was a Tamim guy. He was in charge, well, and rightfully so. He was in charge of worship in the heavens, right? Doesn't this kind of describe he and his minions now?
Yeah.
This over here, Ma'ad.
He's not nice.
He's not nice. He's not nice, he doesn't play fair, he doesn't care. And Yeshua is Tamid. Okay, Tamid. It's a regular burnt or Tamid burnt offering. In verse 6, 28 verse 6, which was ordained at Mount Sinai for a sweet aroma and an offering made by fire to the Lord. Tamid means always and continual. It's an ongoing thing. He's not doing it again, but it's good for forever. Always. Tamid. Yeshua's offering was a once for all sacrifice or a tamid before Yahweh. It's not an all, well, I'm going to get myself screwed up in my words. Oh, not an all-time sacrifice, but the sacrifice for all time. That makes sense?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. For all time, he removed our sin. If we can accept that and thank him for it, and then live with his instructions. That's all we need to do. I think that's all I've got. Oh, except for this part. Important dates to remember, right here. Passover, it's about the redemption, right? Price for the bride. Shavuot, which is coming up here in 5 weeks, is Revelation. It's about the betrothal or the ketubah, the new covenant that we have with him. Trumpets, it's about the reign of Messiah, the coronation. Yom Kippur, Jubilee, the return of all things to the rightful owner. And Sukkot is the gathering of the nations and the marriage, the dwelling with Yeshua. This is all of history kind of laid out for us. And where are we? You know?
Yom
Getting
Kippur, Jubilee.
close. We're getting close. We're getting close. Okay, that's all I got for you except for this one thing. These you shall present to the Lord at your appointed feasts, besides your vowed offerings and your free will offerings, as your burnt offerings and your grain offerings and your drink offerings and your peace offerings. And do you want fries with that? And I'll just leave it with that. With that, because we've already read, I'm not going to read the Ezekiel thing because that's just way beyond me. And it's in Ezekiel 45, that's about in the millennium, but I'm not ready to go there. And the Hebrews one, we've already kind of touched on that, so we'll leave that. The body you have prepared for me. So we'll leave it at that.
This is good.
Thank you.
I hope there was something in there that maybe